Are you afraid of awakening because you may kill your ambition? Or maybe you secretly sabotage yourself because deep down you are afraid that awakening will simply destroy your ambition, or you will become less ambitious. You will become, one of those awakened people who walk around just feeling peaceful and happy all the time. I mean, what then? Like, what to do with your dreams? To make a lot of money and to be healthy and successful and creative and self-expressed? What happens to all of those dreams? A lot of people have this idea of awakening, what it would look like, and what would happen if that happened. And most of it is based on changing the character in the story. So when I work with my clients, the first thing that we do, I give them like a little inventory where they write their expectation. What would that look like if they were awakened? And they start writing all of these things about, how their emotions would disappear, how they would just be more peaceful, more at ease. They would be better listener. What they would never have to deal with anymore. What would be happening instead? There's a whole dream world, entire idea, which usually comes from what we've heard before, reading books, hearing other people speaking about it, and it just makes a lot of sense to us. But non-duality doesn't make sense. And so, let's talk about this question because it's important. A lot of people have so much misconception about ambition. And I already covered that a little bit in my previous video when I talked about the fires, when I said all of the loss sometimes that we go through is not even that loss that feels so painful. It's all the sacrifices that we actually make to achieve all of these things that we've been trying to achieve. And so a lot of times this ambition is connected to achieving, to striving, to thriving, and we associate it with suffering. That's just like with some, desires, that we shouldn't feel desire, we shouldn't be ambitious because it will lead to suffering, because we can't keep what we have. We can't, it's not permanent anyway, and it will just boost our ego. And there's a lot of ideas about it. And so if you think any of those things, even secretly, even unintentionally, there might be sometimes like a hidden sabotaging happening because it's completely hidden until we start looking, that we are actually afraid of being fully ambitious, fully aware of our desires, and just hold these desires as our own, because we are afraid. And we are afraid to awaken from those fantasies and dreams, because that may actually sabotage that dream that we have by definition. And so all of these ideas about ambition, going away, killing the ambition when we get spiritually awakened, has nothing to do with anything. It has everything to do with your survival story. And so what is the survival story? The survival story is the story that the self-identity constructs. It has nothing to do with anything. It has nothing to do with reality, but it believes 100% that it's true. And so we don't even know why we do certain things, why we're trying to achieve certain things, whether it's happiness in relationships, higher status, recognition, money, whatever it is because it's in line of that story underneath that tells us that if we do all these things, we're going to be eventually happy and secure. And it tells you exactly what kind of things we need to do. So we try to do them. And if it matches reality, then we feel really happy and successful. But if those expectations are not met, then we feel very disappointed. and suffering and depressed, and or we strive more and it just goes crazy. And it has nothing to do with anything other than that survival story. It's just a story, what we imagine, because we don't actually know what will bring us happiness. We don't know. That self-identity can never account for the unexpected. And when you think about it, or actually don't think about it, just look in reality how it really is. Some of the things that make us feel the most fulfilled, the most happy, are not those things that we actually trying to do so hard. It's the unexpected things. It comes from maybe being in some limitation for a while, and then suddenly something appears, or somebody appears, or an opportunity comes, and suddenly we have that thing we've always wanted, and that's why it feels so fulfilling. It's unexpected. And so my whole point of this is that your ambition may not go away after spiritual awakening. It may just look different than you imagine. And this is very scary for some time. But it doesn't, for some people, it doesn't mean that it's going to go away, that you will not want to do anything, that you will feel peaceful all the time. All these things are just fantasies. We don't know what that would look like. And you don't need to know what would that look like. But when it comes from the story that you have, that the identity has, then it always comes from lack, and it always leads to lack. And it's the energy of it. It's striving and trying hard, trying to figure it out. The trying always happens in the head, thinking, rehearsing conversations, ruminating about past things, planning for the future just to make sure that we do the right thing, staying in control. And it's a lot of effort. It takes up all that mental space, and there is no space for what we actually enjoy. There's no space for these effortless, beautiful thoughts of noticing like how something is actually great. We're missing some opportunities. We failed all the green flags and the red flags. But that's completely another topic. So what I'm saying here is that the ambition, I don't even know if you can call it ambition, but that drive or creativity doesn't go away. Nature is naturally creative, and it just may look differently. It may not come from that effort, from that lack of trying to convince others about your value, or trying to prove yourself, trying to impress yourself. It just doesn't come from that space. It just comes from that enjoyment for no reason other than seeing what will happen next. That's the best way I can describe it. There is just no idea behind it, what it should look like. But it doesn't have to look peaceful. It can look very ambitious. It can still have big dreams. In fact, the identity itself, it always have very small dreams. It doesn't dream big at all, because it stays in that story where everything is predictable. It tries to predict everything. So it's just, it dreams just enough to survive, just enough to get by. To dream bigger outside of that, it's extraordinary. It's a completely different domain than the self-identity. But we don't know. It's really just that energy is the space, is the context from which those desires or drives are coming from. So the self-identity always comes from lack, because it's a story. And in that story, something bad happened in the past, and now the identity is trying to prevent it in the future. That is basically what it does. And without that identity, without identifying what that particular high achiever or the convincer or whatever roles there are, the identities can be the victim. You feel like everything is overwhelming and you're always falling behind. So without that, there is just spaciousness, as if everything just opens up and your thoughts can just flow so freely, without that effort, without that trying to convince somebody. It's just these ideas just come and they are like, oh, this would be so cool. And like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen if I do this. And as I wonder what's going to happen if I do this, then maybe this can happen. It's like a dance. It's like as I am raising my hand, my body starts to move. And as my body starts to move, my fingers starts to twist, like it's as one thing happens, then other thing happens. It's like a wave. So there is no like planning in the future, even though it can happen. But it's also recognized that future planning, anything can happen to that. It's really just seeing what happens moment to moment. It's that simple directions, because you are so clear in your vision. You are so engaged with reality, with others, that there is just, you're just being guided perfectly. And the space just opens up magically. Like as you take one step, you see exactly what's in front of you. Without those fantasies, without all what you're trying to protect yourself, protect the fantasies about how it should be, suddenly you see the green flags, the opportunities, and you start saying yes to things that you actually want to do, and you start saying no to those things that you actually don't want to do. The self-identity does the opposite. It's why, it always tries to please people, tries to control people. It stays silent. It does all the kinds of controlling things because it has a certain agenda to achieve something, which is, the approval, the love, the happiness, the security. And without it, it is the arrival to what the identity is unsuccessfully looking for in the future. And the arrival is always already happening now. It is just a recognition. And when I say now, I don't mean this moment. Now is not a moment in time. Now it's just seeing what's available now in my life, this week or this month or this year. It's seeing the bigger picture. And as I said, the quality is just openness and curiosity without making any assumptions. Spaciousness. There's patience and enjoyment. Whatever it is that you do, whatever it is that you create, big or small, it just feels like there's so much enjoyment, like a child. And I don't know if I can call this ambition. Maybe we need some distinction there. But yeah, spiritual awakening, which is just dissolving the stories of the self identities, and going beyond the stories, the dualities, into what is being with what is unfolding moment to moment. And if creativity comes, great. If it doesn't, good. Nothing needs to happen other than what is happening. And in that is found security and abundance, because there is just deep trust, without the assumptions and projections into this future, without making it mean something about me. When something doesn't happen fast enough, for example, in my business, if I don't make it mean anything about me in the future, and then already seeing the consequences, obviously that seeing is completely hidden unless we start looking in inquiry. Without all these stories, it's really just emptiness, just nothingness, which is also fullness. It's just so full that there is no space for anything else. And so, yeah, spiritual awakening is the scariest thing for the self-identity only. And so spiritual awakening is only ever scary for the self-identity. It is the end of it. Or it is the recognition that it was never real in the first place. And that the story that is supporting are nothing than just images and convincing thoughts that are just so disconnected from reality, but are confused for reality. And when this is recognized, it's just magic. And we don't know what will happen next. And the most beautiful part of it is that we don't need to know. It's just perfect, with nothing projected onto perfection. It's complete and it's whole. It's just the way it is. It may look like amazing world-changing ideas, or it may look like stillness. It may look like running errands, or it may look like unlike anything you can imagine. Are you tired of meditation? So is your butt. Check out my book, The End of Your Story, Spiritual Awakening Without Any Self-Development Tools. Try not to laugh. Available on my website or on Amazon.